morning. You're watching BT Vancouver. Thanks for tuning in. Our COVID-19 coverage continues this morning, and we begin recapping the Premier's televised address last night. John Horgan has extended BC's state of emergency. The Premier's announcement came on the same day the province surpassed 1,000 COVID-19 cases. Horgan went on to thank healthcare workers for their efforts and sacrifices to keep people safe.
You are moving heaven and earth to help people who are sick. And we know you're stressed. We know you're exhausted. And we know you're being pushed to the very limit. We know you're putting yourself in harm's way to keep others safe. And for that, you have our deepest gratitude.
Horgan says we need to continue to stay home and social distance in order to stop the spread of the virus.
Tonight, I'm asking you to recommit. Recommit to our healthcare workers and to each other. Do your part. Stay home, stay safe, and we'll bend this curve together.
BC now has more than 1,000 confirmed cases of COVID-19. 43 new cases were reported yesterday. 5 more people have died, bringing that total to 24 in this province. 61 people are in intensive care. There have been outbreaks at 19 long-term care homes. BC's health minister says more than 50 ventilators have arrived.
Last week, we announced that 38 ventilators have been refurbished, 15 more have been refurbished for a total of 53. So that's 83 ventilators beyond the 1,272 in the whole system. But those have an enormous, if you'll remember the slides we presented about ventilators last Friday, having those 83 ventilators available for adults is important. In addition, 53 other ventilators, which are currently designed for pediatric care, have been adjusted so they could, if required, be used in emergencies.
And Dick says almost 500 retired healthcare workers, including 35 doctors, have agreed to return to work if the situation in BC worsens. So just how long will all of these restrictions around social distancing last? BC's provincial health officer was asked that question at yesterday's briefing.
What would it look like for us to try and get back to some of the activities that we have? Realistically, and I've said this before, we are going to be in some form of having to monitor and prevent transmission of this virus until we have a vaccine, or until enough of the population is immune to it that it's no longer infecting people. But we know that that's a very high number.
Well, we all know first responders are on the front lines of this pandemic, putting their lives at risk every day. Despite changing how they respond to calls or wearing more protective gear, it can still take its toll mentally. Ashley Burr catches up with one paramedic who works in the downtown east side.
What's it like to be a paramedic during a pandemic? I chat with a Vancouver first responder who works here on the downtown east side about what the last few weeks have been like.
6 feet.
This station off East Cordova Street has become like a second home for Kelly Budway, who's nearing her 10-year anniversary of being a paramedic in BC. But for the last few weeks, working as a first responder has been very different from all her previous years.
There might be a patient who's street side and there's people calling at us to help them, but we need to put all the equipment on to protect ourselves before we can go in to help the patient, right? So it can be quite stressful.
Budway drives in every day from her home in Squamish to join her fellow paramedics in Vancouver, and she sees them as a second family. Since the coronavirus outbreak during a typical shift, she and her co-workers are changing into new personal protective wear upwards of 10 times a day.
We all have families to go home to. You know, it's like unspoken rule that the uniform does not come home with me, right? I have to change my uniform here. If I have to get it cleaned, I can take it to the dry cleaners and have it cleaned.
Working in Vancouver's downtown east side comes with its own set of challenges, being an area with a complex set of social issues, including high levels of drug use, homelessness, poverty, and mental illness.
We're terrified because there is no social distancing on the downtown east side. You go a couple blocks up to East Hastings and people are in each other's space all the time, and there's no cleanliness. These people are already immunocompromised. They don't necessarily see the news the way a lot of our community does because they don't have access to televisions and smartphones. You know, there's a lot of shelters down here. There's a lot of single room occupancies where the cleanliness factors are not as high as they should be. And these people are living in such close quarters that it's only a matter of time until it reaches them and it spreads like wildfire.
The Ambulance Paramedics of BC says currently 75% of calls to 911 ambulance dispatch are related to suspicions of COVID-19 or other influenza-type symptoms. On behalf of her fellow first responders, Budway is calling for British Columbians to reevaluate whether a situation actually needs emergency help before they pick up the phone.
You don't need to go to the hospital with minor symptoms, right? If you have minor symptoms, stay at home, take care of yourself. If you have a fever, start by taking acetaminophen. That's exactly what the hospital is going to do for you, only at the hospital if you're potentially going to give it to someone who's already immunocompromised.
In Vancouver, Ashley Burr, City News.
An apartment complex in Kitsilano is keeping its senior residents moving and grooving while in isolation. Isabel Regem explains.
Bring those knees up. Bring those elbows out.
Residents of this Vancouver seniors residence are not letting social distancing stop them from moving and grooving.
They're wonderful. I think it's great. It's making people get up and do something when most of the time we're sitting around doing nothing.
We teach regular exercise classes for them. The only thing, with what's going on, we can't teach them. So we thought, okay, what if we still teach the classes, take them outside?
Come out to your balcony.
Tapestry at Arbutus Walk is an independent living community in Kitsilano. Among several safety measures, the facility has recently canceled all its fitness classes in response to the spread of COVID-19. For Val Ellis, who typically takes 6 fitness classes each week, this pop-up class is much appreciated.
Tremendous difference from sitting by yourself. I'm a single person here. And to have other people to talk to, wave to, call out their names, and it really is important. Very encouraging.
These are residents that are used to being social. They drive cars, they play golf, and here, they're staying and they're self-isolating. So we have to keep them engaged.
The outdoor dance class is every Tuesday at 11 in the morning. The organizers say it not only allows seniors to get outside and get moving, but also interact with one another.
Right now, it's utmost important to have them come out, see each other through the balcony, wave. They get to call their children and tell them that they exercised, that they came out and they moved, which is, just great for them.
She's doing her exercises usually.
These 3 siblings say the class provides joy in a challenging time.
We can't get in to see her, so it's been tough. So to be able to come out here and look up and see them having fun, and actually, I think it's great for the whole community.
Val Alice says she'll be back out on her patio next week, once again moving to the beat. In Vancouver, Isabel Regem, City News.
Such a great story. Okay, time now to bring in our Russ Lacade, who is working from home today. Russ, how's it going?
Hey, good morning, Mary. Yeah, we're doing the hashtag WFH thing, and I love that story from Isabel because you got to keep moving. It is so chilly out here. We're in